This is Twisted Passages with award-winning author Marie Sutro. Now, let's take a deep dive into the dark world of psychological thrillers and meet the authors who created them.
Hello, and welcome to Twisted Passages. I'm your host, Marie Sutro, and today we have award-winning and international best-selling author C.B. Everett here to talk about the other people. Welcome, CB.
Hi Marie, how are you doing?
Oh, I am ecstatic because you're here and we get to dig into this novel that was oh so great on oh so many levels.
Oh, thank
But
you.
You're welcome. But before we do, would you start listeners off with an overview of what the story is about?
Okay, it starts off in very typical crime trope fashion, or even crime cliche fashion. It's 10 complete strangers find themselves in an old dark house for dinner with a murderer on the loose who could be picking them off one by one. And the only way they can get out of the house is to solve the puzzle of where a missing, kidnapped young woman is. And then while you're reading it, you just have to remember the thing that one of my all-time favorite authors, Jim Thompson, said: there is only one plot. Things are not as they seem.
Fantastic quote for this story. Most people would look at it and say, and you said, you have the characters discuss this, that there are nods to Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None.
Which I live just up the road from where it's set. I live in Devon in southwest England, and the island that she set it on is just down the road from me. You know, so I've been to her house, which is a National Trust property now. I mean, I should say that I was there with my wife and several other writer friends, and we had dinner there. And then somebody said, "Oh, I'll do the dishes. Go and sit in the drawing room." So as I went into the drawing room, everyone else was sitting around it. And I went in and I said, "Right, you'll be wondering why I've called you all here." And everybody with one voice said, and everybody with one voice just looked up and said, "We've done that." So, and then whoever came in after me did the same thing as well. But yeah, so it does take that kind of Agatha Christie thing as a starting point, because it is just such a trope, you know. I mean, it has been done so many times, and I kind of wanted to do something like that, to take a really classic crime fiction trope and almost to kind of bomb it out of the water. Because I mean, even when you read And Then There Were None, there's the section where the butler's wife, who was cooking for them, is murdered, and the only thing he does is apologizes for breakfast being late the next day. So I just thought, no, this is ridiculous. You know, it is a kind of very media literate bunch of people there, because we are all media literate now. So, you know, we would think, oh my God, it's like we're in an Agatha Christie novel. And then if something hideous were to happen to one, oh my God, we're in a Saw film. You know, so it all, you know, oh, maybe we, as one character says, you know, maybe we've all died, you know, and we've just woken up and this is the afterlife, like we're in Lost. Yes. You know, it is. You know, so it was playing with that idea, because that's what people would say. First thing to think of course it is.
Well, what I loved about it was you acknowledged that trope and how over the top it kind of is, right? But then you brought things to it that we didn't really get out of Christie's version. You brought psychology to it. You brought psychiatry to it. You brought philosophy to it. Where did you get the idea to go that intellectual with the story? Was that always something you wanted to do, was to elevate and really dig into the human psyche and what would be going on for people in this incredibly intense situation?
Pretty much, yeah. I just like the psychology elements of it and the Freudian elements of it. It just, again, lent itself to that. I mean, that was always there. That was the way that I wanted to go with it, because an old dark house works so well in Freudian terms. So you've got to lean into that. It's kind of, I mean, the original title that I had when I very first had the idea about 5 years ago, I was going to call it The Last Crime Novel Ever, because I thought, if I can just chuck everything at it, that's kind of all the kind of crime tropes there has ever been, or try and subvert them even. Let's see us do something interesting, but not just for its own sake, but something that actually propels the story along. I mean, it took 2 years to write, and I was kind of obsessed. Well, obviously I was obsessed by it, but I mean, I always say that writing a novel is like, the old variety acts, the plate spinners, when you see all sort of about 15 or 16 plates there. And I mean, this was the same, but it was like double that. It was like 30 odd or 40, 50 plates all going at once, trying to get it. And it took over my life while I was writing it. There's one character who tries to sum everything up by mentioning both the monkeys and Kurt Vonnegut in a couple of sentences, so it's things, chuck everything at it, but I didn't want it to be a dull book. I wanted it to be fun, but I wanted it to have, a very serious undercurrent as well. So I hope that, it worked like that.
It certainly did work. And it is certainly not dull. And it's certainly fun. It is all of those things. One of the things that's so wonderful about this story is that not only is it an amazing thrill ride, not only is it a fun book to read because you have all the different characters giving us their perspectives, but it does what great art does, which is it makes us think about who we are and why we're here. And in that way, I wanted to ask you, and I'm sorry, we're going to just get deep here. So my apologies in advance. Guilt. It's something that comes up in a variety of different ways. Different characters, they're looking at it, they're interacting, they're judging each other based on perceptions of who should have guilt over something or who shouldn't. Was guilt one of those things you wanted to dive into? And do you believe guilt is good or bad?
Well, I mean, like so many emotions, really, and or feelings, I think that the concept of good or bad is all contextual, because you can take something like guilt, like you say. I mean, I think there were kind of two reasons for that. I mean, or two kind of different reasons. I mean, one of it is, again, looking at the way crime novels are structured, and things, and again, going back to that Agatha Christie thing, somebody dies and nobody cares. Nobody cares that there is an absence where there was a person. There is just just complaining that their breakfast is late. So I wanted to go kind of deeper with that. And somebody gets killed there, you have a response to it. Somebody, even in the short space of time that people know each other at the beginning of the novel, and somebody unpleasant dies, no one's feeling particularly guilty over them. But when somebody nice dies, or somebody nicer does die, then you kind of think, oh God, should I have done something more? What could I have done more? And I think it was interesting because, I mean, I came up with the idea during lockdown, and my mother was in a care home. And she was terminally ill at the time, and I could only kind of wave to her through the window. So, and I saw her like a week or a couple of days beforehand, and then, I went back to the care home. They called me and said, you want to come over? I said, well, do I just stand? I said, oh, I think we've gone beyond that. So, so it was kind of written, the kind of Kickstarter for this was this lockdown where all over our country, people were saying goodbye to relatives through windows. Nobody was talking to each other, and everybody was keeping a distance. And I just think that kind of became mixed up with the genesis of it as well. I mean, I always say I would never write, mainly because nobody would be the slightest bit interested in it, but I would never write an autobiography. But the main reason is because I think everything in my life is in my books, in one degree or another. I may have given something that's quite heartbreaking to me and given them to a really awful character who gets killed early on in one novel, but that doesn't kind of negate the fact that was experiential while I was recreating it for that character. And also you see how that character responds to something like that would happen to them. So I think that, it was kind of against this backdrop of when we were all saying goodbye to loved ones through windows, and the kind of emotions that was churning up, then I think possibly not even on a conscious level, but definitely on a subconscious level, all the different kind of gradations of that were going into the novel, and all the different responses to that kind of emotion were going into the novel. Because it's, it is the way that people, will say, oh, well, that's you, isn't it? And you say, yeah, it is me, 5 or 10 years younger and can think of the right things to say at the time. But what people always forget when they ask that question is, when they say that's you, they forget that every other character in it is you as well. Even the really unpleasant ones are part of you that you've dredged up from somewhere. And so I never ever feel like there's good characters and bad characters. There's only characters, because every villain is the hero of their own story. So, even the kind of bad guys in it are explainable because we get into their heads all through the book. I'm not saying it's excusable, but it's explainable, the actions that people do, or whatever emotions might come out with the unpleasant characters rather than the pleasant characters, because that's just the way it kind of goes when you're working, I think.
And I think that's true in life. There's so many people across the spectrum that we meet, so many different people who sometimes have different cultural norms than us, sometimes have different family values. They've been informed by different situations many times that we can't even conceive of. And so this is a beautiful opportunity through this really fun story that my puzzle brain was just, oh my goodness. I was like, ooh, does this piece fit here? Does this piece fit here? That opportunity to see the humanity was one of the unexpected surprises that is so wonderful in this story, because it does sit with you for a long time afterwards.
Oh, good. I mean, one of the things that I wanted from it, people have kind of not believed me when I've said this, but I've always thought a 1-star review is as good as a 5-star review, because you've got an emotional response from somebody. They're often more fun to read, but I mean, they're because you've got a really virulent response from somebody. But I wanted it to be a kind of polarizing book. I wanted people to either love it or hate it. And I knew going in that it wasn't going to be something people would just think, yeah, that's filled a couple of train journeys, So yeah, that's fine. I read that on the way back to work a couple of times. Either people would love it or people would hate it. And I thought it's going to have that kind of response to it, because that's the kind of book it is. And it should have that kind of response to it as well, I think.
And I find sometimes people look to art strictly as a form of entertainment. And if you do bring them anything that causes them to look inward and go to a deeper level of analysis, they don't appreciate that always, because they're like, hey, I'm just trying to get out of all of this stuff that I deal with every day. I don't want to think about it. And we both can totally respect that position. But at the same time, that's where art transcends. And that's where individual experience, mirroring back what's going on, that author's eye in observing, is so powerful. So I was a big fan.
Thank you. But also, I mean, I wanted to do it in such a way that it wasn't worthy, it wasn't dull, it wasn't preachy, because I think absolutely, you can discuss big things in mass entertainment. Shakespeare did, nobody has a problem with thinking of that. Dickens did. So, and I mean, crime fiction is perfect for that. That's what got me into it in the first place, for reading it, as a fan. It molded the world for me. And my understanding of the world was through the crime novelists' understanding of it. It was kind of reportage turning into literature, And I thought, these, I can appreciate these worlds that these writers are living in. I can see it, and I can understand and empathize with it. And so I always wanted to add something to that, but I didn't want to do it in a way that would bore people. And so that was why I think crime fiction is the perfect vehicle to do that.
Well, you are certainly not boring. But
On the page, anyway.
I did want to go back in to something technical that you did in terms of the way that you told us this story. I alluded to the fact that there's multiple POVs from your different characters, that we get to hear their voices and know their thoughts as this incredibly intense scenario is unfolding. Can you tell us a little bit about the Beast?
Oh, the Beast.
Because the Beast is one of the coolest characters ever in the history of characters.
It was one of those days where when I came up with the idea of the Beast, I was kind of thinking, that's it. I may as well take the rest of the week off because I'm not going to top that one. The Beast is, he's called on the page The Beast in the Cellar. And given some of the other things that without giving anything whatsoever away, he does provide a commentary on the action. If I wanted to be pretentious, I could say he's a Greek chorus, but I'm not going to be. He provides a commentary, possibly to a character within the novel, definitely to the reader. And part of the function that he serves is just to explain who the characters are, what their relationships are to each other. And he gets all the jokes as well. There's a bit near the beginning where he says, "Don't you hate it in novels when about 10 characters are introduced all at once and you give them their names and their descriptions and then you're supposed to remember them? I hate it when that happens, so I'm going to do it. These are the characters in the book." And so, it was just kind of me having fun with an authorial voice as a writer, but also making that a kind of important, quite a pivotal character in the novel itself, as you realize when you get to the end. And also just some of the things, the range that he's got for things that he wants to discuss. I call him a he because I see him as a he, or as a beast. But, the things that the Beast discusses, there is even a section where he pretends to be a late night radio show host, answering the letters that people have sent in. And the letters that people have sent in about, didn't so-and-so know that this was going to happen already? Well, they might have done. When they went into that room, why didn't this happen? Well, why didn't it happen? So, and it was a fun way for me of playing with reader expectations, because I was thinking that, if people are reading this, they will have those questions. So why not have a character who voices them? So that was part of the fun of him, really. Beast.
The Beast is such a great character because usually when we read books, it's a solitary endeavor. And with the Beast, you gave us the opportunity to feel like we were reading it with like our best friend, because like you said, he's irreverent, he's educated, he's all of these things at once. He's empathetic in ways. And getting to go on the journey when you turn the page and you're thinking, oh my gosh, did CB just do that? And then Beast is like, yeah, CB just did that. So it's this really fun way to read a story. I feel like the Beast needs to come with me on all the rest of the books I read.
Well, there is kind of a version of the Beast in the next novel, which I think is coming out next year, but I'm not going to say any more about it than that. But there is a character not unlike the Beast.
When you're not running into deep psychological questions, when you are not studying philosophy or bringing amazing, fast-paced thrillers to our feet, what do you do for fun, CB?
Oh, God, nothing.
Well, it's a full-time enterprise here.
Yeah, I'm thinking, here I am, I'm sitting in a lodge house in Cornwall, for a few weeks, where I'm supposed to be switched off and getting back to nature things. And I've spent this afternoon writing, so that I'll probably take the dog for a walk. I make model kits.
You make model kits?
Model kits. It's to try and find a way of using a different part of my brain, because I always believe that whatever creative thing you do, it hardwires your brain in a different way. And I know that they've done experiments with actors. That I think Fiona Shaw did a Samuel Beckett play from inside an MCR scanner while they were monitoring her brain activity, and it was connected up differently while she was doing that. And I think writers kind of, because that they work on that. So I tried music, and I'm a terrible guitar player, but I've always liked to do something with my hands. So I get it's usually model kits of old Universal horror monsters. And
okay, wow, your coolness scale just jumped like so many scales. Like, I'm blown away.
Really?
That is so fun. So fun.
Nobody ever thinks that. I've got the Lon Chaney Phantom of the Opera one at home waiting. That's my next job to do. But yeah, so it is just kind of sitting with real precision painting and putting together, and and then building something up. So you've got it kind of physically in your hands. But again, use a different creative part of your brain, because I can listen to music while that's on. I can have conversations while I'm doing this, which I can't do either while I'm writing. So it does kind of rewire things a bit before I can start on another novel. So I do. It's strange that you say the coolness, because I've never felt in the slightest bit cool doing them.
I'm sorry, but whether it's Bella, whether it's Lon Chaney, whether it's Boris Karloff, those guys are in a certain level of the stratosphere for me. So,
and me, yeah.
yeah.
One of my favorite ones is The Bride of Frankenstein. It's a one with Frankenstein's monster. It's with Elsa Lanchester, the bit where she's sitting on the sofa with her hand and he's looking at her and she's recoiling. I built the model kit of that.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. This is so cool. So is this on your socials, or does this show up anywhere, or?
Oh God, I think it appeared somewhere years ago, I think. And I just thought, no, don't put them up again. You're embarrassing yourself enough. So,
well, that's to say, there's geeks out there like me who just say, oh my God, this guy's so cool. Look what he's got.
I should put them back up again then. Because whenever I've showed photos of them to people and said, look, this is what I did this weekend, they've always kind of just moved slightly further away.
Well, I understand it's an acquired taste. Creature from the Black Lagoon, all of those guys. I mean, they hold a special place in your heart, but not sure what that says about us, but that's okay.
Actually, I don't know if you can see it here, but I'm wearing my Creature from the Black Lagoon shirt. If you see, that's a tiny little Gilman face there.
Oh my goodness!
It's his colors.
Okay,
so,
you just keep getting cooler. It's just what you do, CB. You just keep going as the series goes on.
I'm sorry.
Awesome, absolutely awesome. And this story, I think, because you set it on the foundation of something that, yes, is a trope, but it's a trope we all know. And then you elevated it and you challenged it and you challenged us. Just absolutely a wonderful story.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for saying that. It really does mean a lot to me. Thank you.
You are very welcome. Again, the book is The Other People. If you are looking for an amazing puzzle that you want to solve, you will not be disappointed. Oh, and setting, characters, it has it all. So thank you again, CB, for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And thank you all for joining us on this episode of Twisted Passages. We hope to see you next time. And you can find CB on Blue Sky at Martin Waits and on Instagram at Martin Waits 4847.